Are you ready to upgrade your mindset and continue supporting your healing journey? Join the collective today. This membership gives you access to meditations, healing tools, guest healers, and manifestation workshops. Join today for just $44 a month and start manifesting more abundance in your life. Welcome back to another episode of Breathe More. I'm so excited for today's episode because we have a special guest, Michelle Gomez, and we're going to be talking about a topic that I don't hear a lot of people talking about, but I see a lot of my clients, and I know for myself, really struggle with it. And since Mother's Day is around the corner, I invited Michelle to come talk about the mother wound because that is her specialty, to help women, especially Latina women, to heal that mother wound. I know for me personally, that's something that I'm struggling with still today. I was reflecting back and just looking at your website, Michelle, and how your journey unfolded and the importance of healing and addressing the mother wound and how it affects all aspects of our life. And I found it really interesting just looking back on my healing journey, where I remember before I even started, I saw my mom like on this pedestal. Like, she was in a partnership, in a marriage that was toxic with an alcoholic husband. She did everything to raise her four little girls. Like, she worked, but struggled with charging her worth. Yet she was always there, like so much self-sacrificed. And in my early 20s, I was like, oh my gosh, my mom is my hero. And I was holding a lot of resentment and anger towards dad. So I focused so much of my healing on, when doing the inner child healing work, on healing that aspect and processing my resentment and anger towards my dad. And I have found, and my dad also, to his credit, he has done a lot of healing as well. So I am now able to have, I think, a healthy adult relationship with my mom, though. It's a different story. It's so loaded. It feels heavy. I find myself so impatient and short, and to the point where I have had to set some boundaries with my relationship with her and not reach out as often. There used to be, or there still is, this expectation. And I don't know if there's like just being Latina or all moms are like this, but like there's expectation that I had to call. At first, it was like every day once I moved out of my house, which was insane. And then it was like every week. And if I didn't, it's like, oh, I was a bad daughter, or how dare I not check in? You're abandoning your family, like all this guilt. So I found myself having this relationship or reaching out of obligation, and also like fear of not being seen as the perfect daughter. But there was so much resentment. And then also when I would call, I wouldn't feel good afterwards. Like, I felt like no matter what I said, if I had something good that I was celebrating, like my mom couldn't hold that with me. So then I also felt sad about that. And so we still have this tug of war. And I feel like I need to be one of your clients because I've been having a really hard time overcoming this wound. And I'm not a mother. I'm not going to be a mother in the traditional sense in this lifetime. So I'm not going to have that opportunity that I hear a lot of my clients who are mothers say, like, oh, now that I'm a parent, I have more compassion or understanding, but also I'm recognizing all the ways that my mom wasn't there for me, or ways that I wished that I was loved or treated. So it's a very complex issue. And also, given that Mother's Day is coming up, a lot of emotions, a lot of feelings, a lot of past traumas can surface. And so I felt that having a conversation with Michelle, since she's an expert in this area, would be really beneficial to all of us. So, Michelle, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your knowledge and your story with us.
No, thank you, Ana Lilia. I'm so extremely humbled and honored to be here with you and having this important conversation. It is very loaded, to your point.
Yes. So, do you mind starting off telling us, like, how did you embark in this journey? Like, what were you doing before? What led you to specialize in helping women heal their mother wound?
Similarly to you, Ana Lilia, is I knew very, very clearly that I had a father wound, right? My father was absent. He was an alcoholic, he was an abuser. And because of his alcoholism and his own unhealed trauma, part of the way that he healed wasn't just with alcoholism, but with other women. So he
Mm.
was a womanizer, constantly cheating on my mom. And so it's easy to pinpoint where you think your wound lies with the absent parent. It's like, oh, he wasn't around. So that's why I am struggling with what I'm struggling with. And the
Mhm.
way my father wound manifested was not just with a sense of abandonment, right? Distrust of men, but this wounded masculine energy that was just out to prove myself and prove to the world that I was worthy, because my father, I took it as my father doesn't think I'm worthy enough for him to stay around and to try to be a good man for me. So
Yeah.
I have to go out into the world and prove my worth and work hard and get everyone's approval, get the male approval that I was looking for, right? And in my bosses, in the workspaces that I was in, even in academics, a lot of times when a male was like, good job, or like, that was really good, or like, wow, that was amazing. It was like I was looking for my father's gaze in those moments. So I went to therapy and did all that. But yeah, to your point, it's easy to pinpoint the absent parent as the source of the pain, right? But
Mhm.
when I addressed that matter and I was like, okay, I'm ready to drop into my feminine, I'm ready to trust, I'm ready to, in that regard, eventually I opened up to the reality that I didn't feel safe in my feminine because I never saw it expressed in a healthy dynamic with my mom.
Oh my gosh, girl, so relate. Yes.
So my mom exhibited her own father wound, but hers manifested differently. Yes, she was a hard worker and all that stuff. She had a really great corporate career and did really well. But the way it manifested for her is also seeking toxic men in her life because of her own father wound. And so watching her try to parent while not addressing a father wound was difficult. And sometimes her decisions or the way she moved as a mother were directly responsible for the trauma that I experienced as a child. And so recognizing that, and like you, I put my mother on a pedestal because she's such a hard worker and she's the one who
Mhm.
stuck around and she did this on her own. And I felt I needed to be on her side and protect her from her pain and try to be a good daughter so that she doesn't feel like a complete failure. Oh, my daughter's got good grades. She's doing this in school. She's doing so well. Like she helps around the house. She's so responsible. She's such a little adult, right? And being the oldest in my family, not just in my immediate nuclear family, but in the familia. Like I'm the first
Mhm.
granddaughter. So all my
Mhm.
brothers, all my cousins are all younger than me. So I was pretty much created to be a pseudo adult after the age of about 7.
Mhm.
So I stopped being a child. And so again, all of these experience, I just kept looking at mom because dad wasn't there. And it's like, why didn't you protect me? Why didn't you know better? Why did you allow your pain to become my pain? Right. And so a deep resentment, a deep anger when that veil was lifted. And I stopped putting her on a pedestal because society told me to. I started allowing myself to feel those things. And now I have a perspective of both the duality of both the compassionate view of both things can be true, right? I
Mhm.
feel like she did her best to give us what she thought she needed to give at the moment. But I also realize her limitations and what she could give are a direct responsiveness to my pain and my trauma.
Mhm.
And that's what I'm healing now. And I think you mentioned you're not a mom. And I love that women have that choice now. I mean, we've always had a choice, but society, oh, they hammer into us, you got to have kids, you got to have kids, right? So I recognize that there's a very, very real part of my mother wound in understanding that maybe my mom, if she had the choice, to not have children and heal herself and live for her and realize all her own dreams, that she could have been something different at the time for us. She wasn't allowed that opportunity. Her life didn't play out that way. But that doesn't mean that I have to stuff my pain and not talk through what I'm going through. So sometimes the mother wound and the stuff you experience is intentional. There are abusive,
Mhm.
narcissistic, manipulative mothers out there. And then there's also mothers who have abusive or narcissistic tendencies, manipulative tendencies that we experience that wasn't exactly on purpose. It's just what how they navigated the world at the moment. But acknowledging that and speaking your truth and being able to work through it are both equally important, because I'm able to look at mom like, this is probably not what she asked for. It's always interesting when I think about my mom. I don't know about you, but I'm a big musical theater person. My kids and I love musical theater. We love it. But you know that musical Waitress?
No.
Okay, there's a musical called Waitress, and there's a song called She Used to Be Mine. And in the song, it's a story about a woman who finds herself pregnant from a man who isn't loving towards her and she knows she can't count on. And she's saying to herself, if I'm honest, I know I'd give this all back for a chance to start over and
Mm.
rewrite an ending or two. And that lyric makes me think of her. It makes me think of a lot of women. There's a lot of women now coming forward with regretful mothering statements. If I could do this over, I love my children, but if I could do this over, I would, right?
Yeah.
Or if I find a different way. So I'm able to hold space for both at this point in my life. There was a time, there was no way I could have held space for that humanness in my mom. I was like, you should have known better. I'm healing. You should have been healing. I was so angry, but as with any wound, any healing that occurs, the stages of grief are important. And I call the stages as like a house, and you have to spend time in each room. And only you can determine when you're ready to leave this room. And I was in the rage room, the rage and resentment room for years, years. And now I'm not. I'm not rageful and resentful anymore, but I'm still healing. That's the thing
Yeah.
about the mother wound. It's never stopping. And because I'm a mother, it comes out for me regularly because I make conscious choices with the way I speak to my children and the way I handle my children and the way I hold space for them. And while it fills my heart to be able to do that, it also is a painful reminder
Mhm.
that my mom didn't, but also she couldn't.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I think a lot of people are definitely going to resonate with that and just I feel like you were describing, my story, except for my dad was around the alcoholism. It's really painful, and I really love that visual that you shared about, like, the house and going into different rooms, and that's kind of representative of the journey of healing because it is layered. You think you've taken care of that you're fine now, and then all of a sudden you get activated again. And so it's going back again and doing more digging work, peeling another layer off. And so you embarked on your own healing journey, but what got you to then become a coach, a healer that helps other women do the same?
When I initially launched my LLC, my company in 2018, it was to be a career coach. I was working with women to specifically Latinas, but also women of all, all backgrounds to get more women in positions of power and influence and understanding the buying power of the Latino community and understanding the bridge of more Latinas getting higher education and all that stuff, and really, so I'm like, okay, what is the missing gap? The missing gap was we didn't experience nepotism in our community. And so we didn't have somebody who can, hey, hire my daughter. Yeah. When she gets out of college, can you give her, just let her start as a receptionist and then, or somebody giving you an internship because they play
Exactly.
golf with your dad. You know what I mean? There
Mhm.
was none of that. Like we really had to kick in the door and in our own way, try to get opportunities. And
Yeah.
so I thought, okay, if my goal was to get more women in these boardrooms so that when our little hermanitas start to graduate, we're like, we got you. We got you. Like, Ben, we'll position you, we'll help you, and we'll elevate one another. The problem that I realized a couple years into that was that I had achieved a certain level in my career and I had everything I thought I wanted: the big house, the six-figure salary, the fancy car, the fancy title, the master's degree. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is totally going to heal my wound.
Nope.
And
That
it
hole's still
wasn't.
there.
Yeah. And so I'm sitting here in this amazing position in my life. And I thought, why am I not happy? When I realized the pace that I was going at in my wounded masculine energy of trying to heal my father wound, I realized I got into a place and I said, I can't keep pushing the finish line farther and farther away. I need to rest. I need to drop into my feminine. I need to heal. I need to work on why can't I do this? Why does this feel so unsafe? And that's when I stopped telling women, like, "Oh, just get the degree and just get the career and just get the job and the salary. Everything's going to fall into place." Because I knew it was a lie.
Mm.
It was an internal world that needed to be addressed. And so when I went in, I saw mom clearly. And it's just really unfortunate too sometimes, because I don't know that my mother specifically intended on causing harm. It's what occurred, right?
Mhm.
Just like, but I think any mother who desires to do well as a parent doesn't, I want to believe I'm doing the best for my children, but you don't get to determine that you're a good mom. You can say, I'm a
Yeah.
good mom, but as an affirmation, but really the measuring stick is not you. It's
Mm.
not society. It's the child. The child grows up eventually and says, you know what? I didn't appreciate A, B, and C, or I wasn't in agreement with A, B, and C, where I felt traumatized. And you're thinking, really? Like, it's not what I intended, though, or like it wasn't my fault, or I didn't know. And so part of this healing of the wound is to be able to hold space for those conversations
Mhm.
eventually, So as I'm healing my mother wound, I also acknowledge that it's very possible for my daughters to grow up and have some semblance of a mother wound. And
Mhm.
my healing is not just contingent on having a relationship that's healthy with my mom, but being able to hold space for my daughters to be and say the things that I needed to hear. I understand that was your reality. That must have been very difficult for you. I'm so sorry I had any part in your pain. It was not my intention. I'm not going to explain it away or invalidate your experience. That's what you experience. And I am deeply, deeply sorry. And I hope you can forgive me and we can move forward. That's the conversation that the
Yeah.
healing the mother wound has to be for the mother who's
Mhm.
mothering while healing the mother wound, right? So,
Mhm.
but for a lot of women who have chosen not to mother, it is finding the reconnection with your feminine, learning how to drop into your softness, learning to find safety in that again, find safety in sisterhood again.
Yeah, because definitely for me, like growing up, and not just with my mom, but seeing my tias and like whenever I would go to Mexico, and I was surprised because that wasn't necessarily the case when my extended family would gather in the US. I grew up in Napa. But when I would go to Mexico, I would see all the men ate first. And the
Wow.
women had to wait in the kitchen and they were like heating up the tortillas and serving and just like taking care of them. Once they were done eating, then the woman could sit down and eat. And I just found that was like so
Mm,
strange. That and then also I noticed within my cousins, like the boys had privileges like education or access to education that my cousins who were female didn't.
right.
And I couldn't understand that. So I had a lot of examples, not just in my immediate home life, but also my extended family, where it just seemed unsafe to be a female, like too much sacrifice. You don't have a voice. You do everything. I was like, I remember a time where I set the intention, like, I don't want to be like that.
Yeah.
And so I definitely, not just for that, but also being the oldest of parents who are immigrants and having to translate for them and then also the alcoholism, like there's a lot of reasons why, but I too had to grow up really quickly and then just be in my masculine because
Yeah.
that's what I was mirrored, that it was who was in charge, who had a voice, who had a say, and who was making money, who had the power. And so I'm like, okay, well, then that's how I'm going to be because the other, I don't want to be in an abusive relationship. I don't want to be like so dependent. I don't want to be a second class citizen.
Mhm.
And so to your point, like I have done healing to feel safer and have tried on like, okay, so what does being in my feminine look like? How can I show up and still feel safe, but still also honor qualities of my masculine that I really like and
That
that
you
I think
need.
are exactly
Yeah,
that I
we need
need?
them. Yeah, you can't go completely to the other side. You kinda have to have a balance.
And thank you for saying that because I feel like I've been seeing so much in the spiritual community or just like in social media and stuff, like this push to be always in your goddess energy and your feminine and let things flow. I'm like, okay, but I mean, humans are a complex being, like, we have both, and to just be in one, there isn't balance,
No.
and it's not healthy, and as you said, like, we need both. So, thank you so much for reflecting that back to us and also sharing how important it is and how also if you're not a mother in the traditional sense, that there's other ways that you can work on that and heal that and support you to thrive in
Yeah.
your life.
I think it not being a mother gives you space to really spend time reflecting on it and,
Mhm.
addressing it. I think sometimes when you're mothering while you're healing, it could clash. It could be very, nothing triggers you like your own children, down to like, I don't hit my children. I don't curse at them. I don't yell at them. And I don't call them like pendeja, estúpida, like I don't do that. So when my kids are being kids, I have teenagers. And when I was a teenager, I wasn't allowed to raise my voice, show anger, frustration,
Mhm.
nothing. I wasn't allowed to react. So I had to stifle my discomfort. I had to stifle my rage, my anger, because my mother was very reactive. And so when my daughters, either one of them, if they get a little sassy or if they get a little whatever, I have to walk away and breathe. And I have to, and remind myself like the reason why I'm triggered is for two reasons, right? Because me showing any emotion or disagreement in my teenage years was considered to be disrespectful or ungrateful. Because like look what I
Yes.
provided for you, and how dare you say no to me, or how dare you question me, right? So
Mhm.
but also my mom, because my mom didn't accept those emotions when my children, and if I did, there was physical violence, a backhand, a slap or something. So when my kids show any sense of any sort of sassiness or just an attitude, because they're teenagers, they're girls, it would trigger me for a long while. I still sound does sometimes because I'm waiting for the chancla to fly across the room. I'm waiting for the
Mm.
yelling to happen because a part of my inner child still feels like we're in mom's house sometimes. And so
Yeah.
like I'm like, oh my gosh, these kids. And so I have to walk away and remind myself that I'm creating an environment where you can disagree. You're allowed to be like, but I don't want to do that, mom. Like, I allow bodily autonomy. I allow all that stuff, private spaces. If they want to be alone in their room, then they're allowed to be alone in the room. So it's very triggering, even when they do human things.
Yeah.
So when you don't have that trigger, you're allowed to just be in your apartment or be in your place and not have that. It's a little bit more room to like
Mhm.
sit with yourself, but also triggers can be medicine, and
Oh,
it's very
yeah.
reflective. It's
Yeah.
triggering, but I'm grateful that I can walk away and
Mhm.
use the tools that I use with my clients to regulate my nervous system and sort of reprogram my consciousness. But I'm also tremendously grateful that I have a partner, my husband, their dad. My mom didn't have that. My mom had to just suck it up and deal with it on her own. That must have been very difficult. But she did have a tribe of women. We were raised by
Mm.
women. My grandma, my mom's sister, my aunt, and my mom. They were the Holy Trinity, right? So one of them mommed us all the time.
Mhm.
So we had three moms, ideally, growing up. And two of them reactive. My grandma, not so much. My grandma was more of the calm. But my husband is definitely like somebody who like, he's like, just breathe through it. Like, I'll go talk to him. You stay in here.
Mm.
I'll take it. And I see now the value of
Yeah.
having a partner to kind of bounce off these relationships, these dynamics, because it is very, very triggering. But
Yeah.
I feel it's not impossible. It can be done, but it'll give you the language to be able to address the mother wound if it trickles down to your children.
Mhm. What are some, like for the people listening, how can they identify if they're struggling with the mother wound? Like, are there some symptoms that might be experiencing or some thoughts or stories that they can maybe like, oh, yeah, that's me?
I think the easiest answer to that is feeling very disconnected to your own divinity, your own value as a woman. Like if you feel your value is solely in martyrdom, just giving, self sacrificing, self silencing. I mean, even when you look at what we justify as a good daughter, a good
Yeah.
Latina, the perfect Latina daughter, what is it? It's ingrained in self sacrificing, self silencing, doing for others, constantly ignoring your own needs. All of these things make a good woman, right?
Mhm.
So when that doesn't sit well with you, because now you're exhausted, you're frustrated, you're depleted, and you're like, where did this start? Here.
Mm.
And it could be a combination of anger, sadness,
Mhm.
grief. But a lot of the pain of the mother wound is of the feminine disconnect of your own inner power, the feminine disconnect of your own divinity. Because can you imagine how we incubate and the energy we incubate in? If our moms loved themselves
Mhm.
profusely, carried themselves with such light and nurture and connection and trust. And they knew just the beacon of life that they were. Like, I am close to God because I'm creating life.
Mm.
Like, there's a human existing right now because of a woman. I am connected to the moon. I go through cycles of death and rebirth every 28 days. That's how beautiful I am. I create. You give me a something and I turn it into something. You give me ingredients, I make a meal. You give me a house, I turn it into a home. You give me a seed, I create a being. Like, this is women.
Yeah.
Our intuition is so beautiful and everlasting. So when we are incubated in a body that knows that about herself, we get to be birthed through a canal with that level of understanding.
Mm.
But no, the things that our mothers went through are societal things that impacted and created trauma, abuse, neglect, war, poverty, whatever she went through, all the, we can bring out the ACE, the ACE test on all of us, right? So the adverse childhood experiences, the things she went through, and it's just generational. And so it just keeps going through the portal of the DNA. And we keep rebirthing you until somebody decides, okay,
I'm changing the
I'm
story.
changing the story from here on. I acknowledge that this was part of the codes. This was in the codes. It was. I'm going to rewrite it a little bit so that whatever I birth, whether it be a child, an idea, a
Hmm.
creative expression,
A
it's rooted
business.
in love. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's rooted in love from the point of divinity that I know. I know. And the mother wound is healing and remembering that divinity that has been lost,
Hmm.
that has been erased, that has been shattered in our DNA. And so that's really what it is. When you don't feel divine, when you don't feel worthy, you're depleted, you start to resent womanhood.
Mm.
It's very possible that it relates to the mother wound. And mother wound doesn't mean you have a contentious relationship with your mom. Not always. There's some clients I've worked with that are like, I love my mom. My mom's great. But at the same time, with that same heart that I love, there's a part of my heart that can fully acknowledge the pain that I've carried because of that. And it could be, again, through not just the treatment, but sometimes the immersiveness. Sometimes it's the
Mhm.
enmeshment. Like, I'm afraid to be my own woman because my mom is so codependent on me.
Oh,
And
yes.
she likes us to be like a unit. But there's a level of my womanhood I can't possibly get to and experience in myself because I worry about betraying her and I worry how this is going to hurt her. Again, all related to divinity, all relating to your own innate power, your intuition, discovering your full womanhood and being able to embody your full womanhood. What is getting in the way? And it's likely some of the codes that have been in your DNA through the mother wound.
Mhm. So if this is resonating with you, if you're identifying, okay, I can totally relate that I'm burnt out, I'm not feeling safe in my feminine energy, I'm feeling a little resentful, I'm not celebrating the magic that I have within me, then I invite you to join our special workshop in the collective where Michelle is going to guide us in a practice to move some energy around that. Can you share more about what we can expect in this workshop?
Okay. The experience and the journey I want to carry your collective through is something called connecting to the soul level mom. I learned through my practice the engagement of something called karmic energy healing. And
Mm.
it's sort of healing the karmic energy around your mother wound. And I have learned different practices that help move the stagnant energy of the wound so that you can open up a heart path to mom in a way that maybe you've never thought of before. Soul level mom is kind of like higher self mom, the evolved version of mom, maybe the mom that I talked about just a bit ago, who knows better, who has done the healing, who changed the codes, changed the story, right? There's a version of mom. Right now, we know this version of mom, this human mom, but she's going to experience multiple deaths and rebirths, and some of them you may not live to see. She goes on, her spirit, her soul moves on. Soul level mom is the mom that is safe, the version of mom that is safe, that knows she's healed, she understands. She's got a higher level position of seeing everything and seeing the pain. She's very aware of what's happened. She's even seen versions of herself causing the pain to you at different points. So she acknowledges what you've been through and she's able to kind of come into your orbit with a nurturing, loving, safe energy. So the soul level version of my mom that I connect to, is the version of her that I even allow my inner child to be around.
Mm.
Like my mom's human self now, unfortunately, she's not in a place where I would share my inner child with her. Even to this day, when we talk about my childhood, I'm very calculated with what I say. I'm very
Mhm.
reserved with what I share because she can be reactive. And my intention is not to hurt her. So, in an effort to protect her, I kind of keep it to myself sometimes, right? But I let it all out with soul level mom. I call on her regularly. I invite her to come in and mother me when I need it. We all need moms. We all need mother energy. So I have my Pachamama, Madre Tierra, and I have my soul mother, and I have my ancestors. So they all are sort of my spiritual team. And I feel that all hijas need to know how to connect to soul level mother so that you can start to learn to accept mother energy again from a
Mhm.
safe place. And don't be surprised if this work that you do in the karmic energy field starts to impact your mom. Because even my mom has noticed it at times. She'll notice like a shift in the way she talks to me or the way she
Mhm.
addresses me, her expectations of me. It's changed since I started doing this work. And so when she did ask me, I've just noticed some things different with you. And I'm like, no, something's different with you,
Oh, how beautiful.
So I want to share this practice with your collective in hopes that they can access a version of their mother that they can lean on for support as they're healing their mother wound.
I cannot wait. This workshop is taking place Monday, May 13th. That's 5 p.m. Pacific time. You can join the collective to participate, or you can also just purchase a ticket to check out all of the magic that we do in the collective. And for anyone who's interested in working with you one on one or personally, like what offerings do you have? How do you work with people?
So currently, I have a ways for you to work with me virtually or in person. So virtually, I have a group coaching course called the Healed Hijas Liberation Academy. We are about 75% through our first cohort right now. The next cohort is going to be offered for the end of July. So anybody who wants to join the next cohort can get on our wait list. There's a link
Great.
in my bio on Instagram. But I'm also a Paco, Pampasemayok. So it's a curanderismo practitioner. So if anybody needs in person sessions, I do offer limpias and soul retrievals, healing platicas, things like that, as well as like despachos. We call them
Mhm.
ayahuarquis. But yes, that's an area of practice that I offer as well.
And where are you? Just so
I'm
that
based
people
in
know.
Southern California. I'm here in Riverside County. So I've worked and I do my work usually in nature. So most of my clients that I do in person work with, I have them meet me at a local lake that has some apus, mountains. So we do our
Where
work
in
there.
Riverside? Because I'm in Riverside County now too.
Yeah, Paris Lake.
I don't think I
Well,
I
it's
know where
also
that
called
is.
people call it Lake Paris, Paris Lake, but it's a
Beautiful.
national park. They have campgrounds and they do fishing and stuff like that. But there's a portion of the lake that has been very, very healing for me. It's kind of where I go when I need to ground my energy and connect to
Yep.
nature. But a lot of the healing practices that I've done in person with clients in that space have been transformational. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Amazing. Michelle, thank you so much for sharing your story and just for shining light on the mother wound and the importance of healing and doing work towards it. I feel like our conversation, I was just seeing like little girls, whether teenage selves or inner child, like feeling validated by hearing what you had to say. And it's like, oh my gosh, yes, like I want to experience that safe mothering. Like I want to feel worthy enough. I want to, for myself, like really truly believe that and not continue to seek all these outside validations, whether it's from career or relationships or anything, but really come back to self and be able to give that to yourself. What beautiful work that you're doing. Thank you for doing this work for the world.
Uchi pasa, gracias. Thank you.
Gracias. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. We'll be back next week. And please give Michelle a follow on Instagram. All her information, including her website, are in the show notes. Book a session with her and join us in the collective on Monday, May 13th at 5 o'clock. Bye, everyone.